In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at this classic Packard Bell Legend PC from the early 90s. This isn't just a run-of-the-mill 486 machine. This one is supreme. So get out your tomatoes and sour cream, because this ain't your ordinary taco. It's coming up right now on the Retro Hack Shack. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Retro Hack Shack, where we're going to be taking a look at this Packard Bell Legend today. Before I start, I just want to give a huge shout out to all my patrons and YouTube members. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And if you are a follower of the channel, you know that I'm right in the middle of trying to repair and salvage a big stack of very early IBM PCs that I found at e-waste. I'm having a little trouble repairing the 5160, and so I'm doing a few videos in between life activities so that I don't wait too long in between videos. But I appreciate your patience, and this should be a short, fun one today. So let's take a look. So what we have here today is a Packard Bell Legend Supreme. I don't know why they called it Supreme, but this is the perfect time capsule of an early to mid 90s family PC. Of course, Packard Bell was one of the biggest names in home computers back then, but they actually got their start making radios and televisions, something that some of the younger generation may not be aware of if you grew up using these PCs. But as you will see in the video, they actually put their slogan right in the BIOS that said, "America grew up listening to us, it still does." And that's of course referring to their legacy in radio and televisions. This particular Legend Supreme has the bright Packard Bell branding on the front, although this beige plastic has definitely seen better days. You can see that the painted metal case in the back here is the original color. That wouldn't have faded as much, and the plastic on the front has faded quite a bit over time. On the front, we can see a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive, a 3 1/2 inch drive, and yeah, that's about it. There's power button, a turbo button, and some blinky lights, but boy, this sure does scream out early 90s to me. On the back, I don't see any cards plugged into this thing, and most of the functionality is actually baked into the motherboard. So there's a serial port, a parallel port, joystick port, VGA port, and PS2 ports for keyboard and mouse. Interestingly enough, there's also a built-in modem, so dialing up for internet was becoming more and more popular these days, so they added a modem, which looks like it's probably some sort of add-on board and not a dedicated card.
At Best Buy, we're glad to introduce the new line of Packard Bell 486 SX computers. Oh, funny, where is it?
Sold it, but I got snapshots.
Snapshots?
See your 170 meg hard drive, 2 megs memory. Oh, there's your monitor, your software, the printer. No, that's Aunt Lois. Here's the printer. Here's the $13.59 price tag and the 0% financing with no payments for 6 months in all computers.
Well, thank you very much, but I want the real thing.
Can't have it.
Why not?
Out of time.
Hey!
All right, so when I turned this thing around to open it up, I definitely heard some rattling inside. So we'll have to see what that is. Once I removed the screws and slid the cover off, I found out what it was. It was a couple of bags of parts rolling around loose inside the case. That's interesting. So there were a couple of things in here. At first, I thought this one was a 556 timer chip, and then there's a bunch of SRAM chips that look pretty familiar. They look like they were probably part of some sort of cache upgrade, level 2 cache upgrade, which was pretty common at the time. Also inside, I found a Connor 170 megabyte hard drive. That's pretty typical for this era. Unfortunately, these Connor drives really do not survive very well. I have not found, I don't think, any Connor drives that have survived. So some of the Western Digital drives and other drives I've been able to get powered up and working, but all the Connor drives I've ever had have been DOA. Now, what worried me about this particular motherboard was that there should be a CMOS battery somewhere, and at first I couldn't find it. But then I went ahead and took the modem card out, and underneath, there it was over in the corner just waiting for me to see a bunch of corrosion. But fortunately, when I took a closer look, there was no corrosion. This battery, amazingly, had not leaked. In fact, there was no corrosion on the ends at all. Usually these batteries have at least some corrosion going on, some leakage, but not in this case. This battery actually made it through all these years pretty well. So I went ahead and removed the riser card and the little crossbar here, and I took out the modem because we really won't be using that much, and I needed to get that out of the way to get that battery out of here. And looking at this, we can indeed see that this is a 486SX system with an optional floating point unit chip that you could put in here, the math coprocessor, as you may know it. It does look like there's some memory soldered onto the board, but there's also slots for additional memory to be put in, for 32 pin slots to be exact. And up here, yes indeed, there are sockets for adding level 2 cache. So perhaps we can see if these chips do indeed fit in here a little bit later, and maybe we'll get a little bit of an upgrade. So now it's time to power this thing up and see if it was working. But before I do that, I need to thank the sponsor of this episode, PCBWay. PCBWay offers low-cost but high-quality prototype PCBs and a whole lot more. Whether you need assembly services, 3D printing, or CNC milling, you can rest assured that the products you get from PCBWay will be supreme. And I thank them for their support of the Retro Hack Shack. And to my surprise, it actually did boot right up, no problems. Now, of course, the hard drive wasn't working. In fact, the hard drive was making an awful noise, so it doesn't seem like there's any way that's going to be working. But everything else seems to come to life. The floppy drive seems to be working, or at least trying to work, and the computer is booting up into the BIOS. The memory test passed, so this is actually looking pretty good. Now, as far as the monitor is concerned, I've featured this monitor, I believe, on maybe an e-waste haul video a while ago or something. I do remember it, but I thought I'd pull it back out since it is Packard Bell branded and period accurate. Unfortunately, it looks like we're having some color issues here. It started out that I was just getting green, and then once I left it on for a while, I could see the text turning blue. And then finally, when I left it on and warmed it up for quite a while, I finally got all the colors to come back. So this seems to be perhaps a monitor in need of a recap. So I'm going to label it as such, and maybe we'll get back to this in another video where we can change out those caps and make sure I don't have to wait so long before all the colors actually come back for this particular monitor. So the first thing I wanted to do was focus on this 3.5-inch drive to see if I could get this thing booted up into DOS. I did go ahead and clean the drive, but no matter what I did, this drive would not read anything, and it was making a horrible clicking sound. It sounded like probably the stepper motor wasn't working quite right on this particular drive, so I went ahead and took it out and replaced it with a good one. After I did that, I was able to boot up into DOS, so we're making some progress. Next, I went to work on the 5.25-inch drive. Now, at first, I couldn't even get a disk to go all the way in the drive. It would just get stuck. And when I took the drive apart, I found that it was packed with dust and grime after years of sitting around and probably inhaling all that dust from wherever this thing has been living throughout its lifetime. So I took the drive out, cleaned it out with some compressed air, lubricated the rails and the shaft of the stepper motor, and then I fired up IMD to see if this thing would actually work. And it's still not working, and I think the problem is a bad stepper motor. So what I did was I loaded up IMD and put it in analyze mode, which lets me move the heads back and forth, and I think you'll see what's going on here. Now right now the head should be in the 0 track position, and watch what happens. See how far it moves when I move it up to the 70th track position. Here we go. It moves up nice and clean. The steps sound good from the stepper motor. But when I move it back to 0, the motor is skipping steps. So watch when I move it back to 0. Now remember, it should go all the way back to where it started. Here we go. So it didn't move all the way back. In fact, it moved maybe 3/4 of the way back. Now let's try that again and see what happens. So I'm going to move it to the 70th track. And that time it went all the way to the end and started hitting against the stop here. So it that's because it was trying to move it 70 clicks or whatever the stepper equivalent is. And it got to the end and couldn't. Now I'm going to try to move it back to 0. Let's see how far it goes this time. So it only moved that much. This should be all the way back here now, and instead it's right there. So unfortunately, this drive has a bad stepper motor and is not going to work with any sort of easy fix. So I'll put this on the shelf with all the rest of my other marginal drives, and I'll write bad track on it. And then sometime in the future, I can go ahead and maybe swap out the stepper motor and get this thing working again. Well, with one floppy drive up and running, it was time to play a game and see what kind of performance I could get out of this thing. So I put in a copy of Wolfenstein 3D and loaded it up. Now, there's no sound card in this particular computer, and so we're going to be using the crappy PC speaker here, which is not a problem. But one thing I noticed when I was loading the game and playing the game is just how slow it was running. I mean, it really seemed to be running frame by frame, and it took forever to actually load the game up. And that's when I remembered that this thing had a turbo button. I had totally forgotten about it, so I hit the turbo button and reloaded the game. The second time, the game loaded much, much faster, and not only that, it's actually playable now, as it should be on a 486. I mean, Wolfenstein 3D could be played reasonably well on a 386 and maybe even a faster 286, so I couldn't figure out why it was going slow. But in the end, the turbo button came through and Wolfenstein 3D played great. Next, I want to tackle adding that level 2 cache, or at least that's what I think those chips are for. So I want to get a baseline benchmark first so that we can see how much improvement or how little improvement happens when we add that level 2 cache. First, I loaded up Cache Check to see what kind of cache the system was actually seeing, and yes, indeed, it's only seeing the 8K of level 1 cache that's built into the 486SX. So I went ahead and fired up Topbench. Topbench should give us a decent performance number here. It's meant for computers about this age, so we should be able to get something on the system here to see how it scores. And indeed, we can see when Topbench gets loaded, it's scoring the system at about 71. Interestingly, it's also identifying this as a 486DX25, which is a little weird because this is a 486SX system, and you would think that Topbench would be able to figure that out. But nonetheless, we have our benchmark, so let's go ahead and see if we can install that level 2 cache upgrade. So, taking a closer look at these SRAM chips, they are indeed meant for a level 2 cache upgrade. In fact, I think I was the one who ordered these a long time ago when I first encountered this system, meaning to make a video out of it, and I totally forgot. And I'm lucky I put those chips actually in the case because they would have been lost to time. There's no doubt about that. And these other chips that I thought were 556 timers are not. They're actually an additional memory chip, a 64x1 memory chip that's meant as the dirty bit. So the level 2 cache has, in this particular system anyway, has 3 components. There's the memory itself, which acts as the level 2 cache, and then there's an additional cache chip, which is identical to those 8 that I'm installing here, which is called the tag RAM. And then in some systems, there's also something called the dirty bit chip, I guess. And basically that dirty bit chip is an additional bit of memory that helps mark when the system should move from one memory bank to another one, essentially, or when that's been filled up and it becomes dirty, needs to be refreshed and move on to another part of the cache. That's what that chip is for. Not all systems have all 3 components. Some just have the main SRAM and the tag chip as well, but this one has all 3, and luckily I was able to source all of them and get these installed. All right, so with those installed, it's time to boot up the system, and hopefully it boots. And yes, the system does boot up. So let's run Cache Check again and see if it can see the level 2 cache that we added. And yeah, sure enough, there it is, 256K of level 2 cache, alongside the 8K of level 1 that's built into the processor. So that's good. It seems like everything's up and running. Then I ran Topbench again to see what the magic number would be from all of that cache we added to the system. And drumroll please, we went from 71 to 76. That's right, only about a 3 or 5% improvement. So not that huge, but that was pretty typical back in the day. When you added this level 2 cache, you didn't always get the performance boost that you thought you might, and that is the case here. So not going to be great for adding a whole lot of horsepower to games, but perhaps there's some other workloads that would take better advantage of the additional cache here that the processor can now use. So I'm going to continue to look for a replacement stepper motor for that 5 1/4 inch drive. I'm not going to give up on that. I'll just put it in my big pile of to be fixed 5 1/4 inch drives that I have going on, and perhaps I'll do a repairathon at some point on the channel. But we were able to fix that 3 1/2 inch drive. We were able to play a little Wolfenstein. We even installed that level 2 cache. This thing is just running great after all these years. If you had a Packard Bell Legend of this vintage back in the day and you enjoyed playing games on it, I want to hear about it. Let me know in the comments below. You guys are so good about sharing your stories. I do try to read every comment and I really appreciate all of them. So if you had one, let me know and tell me what kind of games you played and what you did with it. Did you have level 2 cache? Did you install it yourself? I'd really be interested to hear your thoughts on this system. Now, if you liked this particular episode, there are more that you can enjoy. In fact, I'm going to put a couple right over here and look forward to more videos for me getting back to those early IBM PC repairs in a video coming up very soon. Thanks for all your support, and we'll see you next time.
End of line.